The first sign was so small that Brandon Pierce almost missed it. A cologne scent on his pillow that wasn't his brand. He'd been traveling for work, 3 days in Seattle closing a major acquisition for his firm, and came home exhausted on a Thursday evening in March. Melissa had already laundered the sheets by the time he'd thought to mention it. New fabric softener, she'd said, not looking up from her laptop. Emma's been having allergies. Brandon had accepted it then. After 12 years of marriage, you don't interrogate every small oddity. But that was the first pebble in what would become an avalanche. Brandon Pierce was 38, a senior financial analyst at Morrison & Associates, a mid-sized investment firm in Charlotte. He'd worked his way up from entry level, putting in 60-hour weeks while Melissa finished her marketing degree. They'd been college sweethearts. He'd fallen for her during a shared economics class, drawn to her quick wit and infectious laugh. They'd married young, at 26, full of dreams about building a life together. Their daughter Emma had come along 6 years ago, after 2 miscarriages that had tested their marriage, but ultimately brought them closer. Or so Brandon had thought. Emma was the light of his life, a precocious 6-year-old with his analytical mind and her mother's charm. She had Melissa's strawberry blonde hair and his green eyes, a perfect blend of both parents. Melissa worked at Clemton Marketing Group, a boutique firm downtown. She'd been there 4 years, working her way up to account manager. The job required occasional evening events and client dinners, which Brandon had always supported. He believed in partnership, in supporting each other's careers. The second sign came 2 weeks later. Emma, chattering during dinner, mentioned Uncle Mike for the first time. Uncle Mike says I throw a baseball better than most boys, she announced proudly, demonstrating her wind-up with her fork. Brandon looked up from his plate. Uncle Mike. From Mommy's work. He's really nice. He came to my practice last week when you were at your conference. Brandon caught Melissa's eye. She shrugged casually. Michael Garrett, the new creative director. He lives nearby and offered to help when you were traveling. You know how Emma's coach always wants parent volunteers. It was reasonable. Plausible. Brandon knew the demands of Emma's various activities: soccer, t-ball, art class. He traveled roughly 1 week per month, sometimes more during busy seasons. Having help from Melissa's colleagues seemed practical, but something nagged at him. The way Melissa had said the name, too casually, like she'd rehearsed it. Chapter 2. The Accumulation. Over the next month, Uncle Mike's presence grew like ivy creeping up a wall. Emma mentioned him constantly. Uncle Mike had shown her a card trick. Uncle Mike knew all the words to her favorite songs. Uncle Mike had fixed her bike chain when it came loose. Sounds like Mike's been really helpful, Brandon said one evening in early May, keeping his tone neutral. They were cleaning up after dinner, Emma already in her room doing homework. He's great with kids, Melissa replied, loading the dishwasher. Never had any of his own. I think he enjoys being the fun uncle type. Maybe we should have him over for dinner sometime. I'd like to meet him. Thank him properly. Melissa's hands stilled for just a moment. Oh, he's really busy. Big campaign launching soon. But yeah, maybe after things calm down. The third sign was the credit card statement. Brandon usually handled their finances. It was his area of expertise, after all. A charge at Romano's, an upscale Italian place downtown, on a Tuesday when he'd been in Dallas. The amount suggested 2 people. When he'd asked Melissa about it, she'd had an answer ready. Client dinner, last-minute thing with the Hartley account. I told you about it, remember? You were probably distracted with your presentation prep. Maybe he had been distracted. The Dallas trip had been stressful, a major client threatening to pull their portfolio. But Brandon prided himself on his attention to detail, and he didn't remember this conversation. He started paying closer attention. Melissa's phone, which used to sit casually on counters and tables, now lived in her pocket or face down beside her. She'd added a passcode, claiming Emma had been getting into apps and making purchases. Her evening client events increased from once a week to 2 or 3. Her wardrobe underwent a subtle transformation: new dresses, higher heels, a designer purse that must have cost a fortune. "Treat yourself," she'd said when he'd raised an eyebrow at the purse. "I got a bonus from the Hartley signing. Besides, appearance matters in marketing. You know that." Brandon did know that. He also knew Melissa's bonuses were direct deposited into their joint account, and he hadn't seen any unusual deposits. Chapter 3. The plan. By late May, Brandon's suspicions had crystallized into certainty. Too many late nights, too many evasive answers, too many mentions of Mike from their daughter. But suspicion wasn't proof, and Brandon was nothing if not methodical. He installed a Ring doorbell camera, ostensibly for package security. "Porch pirates are getting bad in the neighborhood," he told Melissa. She'd agreed enthusiastically. Too enthusiastically, he thought in retrospect. She probably assumed he'd only check it when expecting deliveries. Brandon's next business trip was scheduled for June 15th, a 3-day conference in Dallas he'd been planning to attend for months. He went through all the motions: booking flights, arranging the hotel, printing his conference schedule. He packed his suitcase in front of Melissa and Emma, talking about the sessions he was looking forward to attending. "Daddy, bring me something from Texas," Emma demanded, hugging him goodbye that Monday morning. "What would you like, Princess?" "A cowboy hat. Uncle Mike says I'd look good in one." Brandon's jaw tightened, but he kept his smile. "Uncle Mike has good ideas. I'll find you the best cowboy hat in Dallas." He kissed Melissa goodbye, noting how she turned her cheek at the last second, his lips landing near her ear instead of on her mouth. When had that started happening? "Have a safe flight," she said, already turning back to her coffee. "Text me when you land." "Of course. Love you." "Love you too." The words came automatically, like a reflex. No feeling behind them. Brandon loaded his suitcase into the Uber, waved goodbye, and rode to the airport. But he didn't go inside. Instead, he had the driver take him to the Marriott near the airport, 20 minutes from home. He checked in under his company card. He'd need the receipt for his lawyer later. Chapter 4. The first night Brandon ordered room service and settled in with his laptop, the doorbell camera app open on his phone. He tried to work, reviewing portfolios and market analyses, but his attention kept drifting to the small screen showing his empty driveway. At 5:47 p.m., Melissa's Honda Civic pulled in. He watched her help Emma out of the back seat, both of them laughing about something. His heart clenched. Whatever happened, Emma would be the one to suffer most. The evening proceeded normally on camera. Pizza delivery at 6:30. Emma's favorite from Antonio's. The babysitter, Mrs. Chen from 2 houses down, arrived at 7:15. Melissa left at 7:25, dressed in a black cocktail dress Brandon didn't recognize. She'd told him she had a client event that evening. The Pemberton product launch, she'd said. He'd actually called the Pemberton offices that afternoon, pretending to be a vendor confirming event details. There was no launch event. Their marketing team was at a conference in Miami. Melissa returned at 11:43 p.m. Alone. Brandon released a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Maybe he was wrong. Maybe he was paranoid, destroyed by too many true crime podcasts and Reddit relationships posts. But then he saw Melissa pause at the door, checking her phone, smiling at something on the screen. She stood there for a full minute, typing, her face illuminated by the glow. The smile wasn't one he'd seen directed at him in months. Tuesday proceeded similarly. Brandon attended virtual meetings from his hotel room, maintaining the pretense of being in Dallas. He even posted a photo on LinkedIn of the Dallas skyline, a stock photo he'd grabbed online. "Great first day at the Financial Leaders Summit. Looking forward to tomorrow's sessions on emerging markets." Melissa had liked the post within minutes. The hypocrisy of it made his stomach turn. That evening, she was home by 6 p.m. No sitter, no evening out. They appeared to have a normal night in. Brandon almost felt foolish. Until 9:47 p.m. A BMW pulled into his driveway, a silver 5 Series, new from the look of it. The driver sat for a moment, checking something on his phone. Then Michael Garrett stepped out. Brandon had looked him up weeks ago. 35, divorced, hired at Clemton 8 months prior. His LinkedIn photo showed a handsome man with perfectly styled dark hair and the kind of casual confidence that came from never having to work too hard for anything. His bio mentioned his love of craft beer, CrossFit, and connecting with authentic people. On the doorbell camera, Mike didn't hesitate. He walked to Brandon's front door like he'd done it 100 times. He didn't ring the bell. The door opened before he could knock. Melissa stood there in lingerie red lace that Brandon had never seen before. She grabbed Mike's shirt, pulling him inside, kissing him deeply in the doorway of the home Brandon had spent 12 years paying for. Brandon screenshot everything, his hands trembling with rage. He had to put the phone down, afraid he might crush it. They'd closed the door, but Mike's car remained in the driveway, in Brandon's spot, like he belonged there. Chapter 5. The long night Brandon didn't sleep. He sat in that hotel room staring at the doorbell feed, watching his empty driveway with Mike's BMW sitting in it like a monument to his humiliation. He drafted emails to lawyers. He researched North Carolina divorce law. He calculated child support, asset division, custody arrangements. At 2 a.m., the bedroom light visible from the street went out. His bedroom, his bed. At 3 a.m., Brandon threw up. By 4 a.m., he'd compiled a file, screenshots, bank statements showing suspicious charges, a timeline of Melissa's lies. He emailed everything to himself, to his brother Jake, to a new Gmail account he created just for this purpose. At 6:23 a.m., Mike emerged. He was wearing Brandon's robe, the blue terry cloth one Emma had given him for Father's Day last year. The casualness of it, the sheer disrespect, made Brandon's vision blur with tears he refused to shed. But worse was what happened next. Emma's face appeared in the window, her little hand waving. Mike waved back, said something that made her laugh. Melissa appeared behind their daughter, her hand on Emma's shoulder, all three of them framed in the window like some perverse family portrait. Mike kissed Melissa goodbye, a casual peck, like this was routine, like this was normal. Then he drove away, leaving Brandon's family waving from his window. Brandon gave it an hour. He needed to calm down, to stick to the plan. At 7:45 a.m., he checked out of the hotel and drove home, parking around the corner. He walked to his own front door with his suitcase, noting the oil stain Mike's BMW had left on his driveway. He rang the doorbell. Chapter 6. The Return. Daddy! Emma flew out the door, launching herself at him. Why are you ringing the doorbell, silly? Brandon caught her, lifting her high, treasuring her weight in his arms. Forgot my keys on the trip, princess. Happens when Daddy doesn't get enough coffee. Emma giggled. Mommy says you drink too much coffee already. Mommy's probably right. He set Emma down, looking up to see Melissa in the doorway. The color had drained from her face. Brandon? The conference doesn't end until tomorrow. He stepped inside, setting down his bag with deliberate calm. Ended early. Keynote speaker got food poisoning, threw the whole schedule off. Figured I'd surprise my girls. Emma bounced excitedly beside him. Best surprise ever! Oh, and guess what? Uncle Mike missed you! He slept over to keep us safe! The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Brandon kept his eyes on Melissa's face, watching her try to calculate, try to figure out how much he knew. Is that right? Brandon knelt to Emma's level. Uncle Mike slept over. Emma nodded enthusiastically. He sleeps in your bed when you're gone. He said it's because the guest room bed is too small for him because he's so tall. And he makes chocolate chip pancakes for breakfast. Way better than the frozen ones Mommy makes. Each word was a dagger, but they were also evidence. Brandon pulled out his phone, hit record, slipping it into his shirt pocket with the camera facing out. Tell me more about Uncle Mike, sweetheart. Does he come over a lot when I'm traveling? Emma, Melissa interjected, her voice pitched too high. Why don't you go play in your room? Daddy needs to unpack. No, Brandon said quietly. Let her talk. I'm interested in Uncle Mike. He sounds like a good friend. Emma, oblivious to the tension, chattered on. He's the best! He brings me presents, look! She ran to the living room, returning with a stuffed unicorn. This is Sparkles! And he fixed my bike, and he knows all the words to Frozen songs, and he even used your special coffee mug, the one Mommy says only Daddy can use. Did he? Brandon stood slowly. What else does Uncle Mike do here? He takes showers in the morning and borrows your clothes sometimes because he forgets to bring his. Oh, and he knows where everything is. Even where Mommy keeps the extra toilet paper, and I didn't even know that. Melissa looked like she might faint. Emma, that's enough. Go to your room, now. Something in her mother's tone finally registered. Emma looked between her parents, her excitement dimming. Did I say something wrong? No, princess. Brandon kissed the top of her head. You didn't do anything wrong. Why don't you go play with Sparkles? I'll come see you in a few minutes. Emma hesitated, then headed upstairs, clutching her unicorn. They waited until they heard her door close. Chapter 7. The Confrontation. 3 questions, Brandon said, his voice deadly calm. How long? How many times? And did you really think our 6-year-old could keep your secret? Melissa's tears started immediately. Brandon, I can explain. Explain? He laughed, a harsh sound. Explain what? How you let another man sleep in my bed? In front of our daughter? Made her complicit in your affair? It's not like that. It's exactly like that. Brandon pulled out his phone, showed her the screenshots. I never left town. I've been watching the house. She gasped. You were spying on me? I was confirming what Emma's been telling me for weeks. Uncle Mike is so funny. Uncle Mike fixed my bike. Uncle Mike knows all of Mommy's favorite songs. He scrolled through more footage. 3 nights. He stayed here all 3 nights I was supposedly gone. Brandon, please, let's talk about this. We can go to counseling. Counseling? He stared at her. You think counseling fixes this? You exposed our daughter to your affair. You made her lie to me by omission. You let her get attached to your boyfriend. What happens when I tell the judge that? The word judge hit Melissa like a physical blow. You can't be serious. Think about Emma. I am thinking about Emma. You clearly weren't. Brandon started making calls, putting each on speaker so Melissa could hear. First, his lawyer. Jim, it's Brandon Pierce. I need you to file those papers we discussed. I have the evidence. Yes, adultery with documentation. My daughter's been exposed to it. First thing tomorrow? Perfect. Next, a locksmith. Emergency service? How soon can you be here to rekey a house? An hour? Excellent. Then he scrolled through Melissa's emergency contacts on the fridge, finding Mike's number. One more call to make. Brandon, don't... He was already dialing. Mike answered on the second ring. Mike, it's Brandon Pierce. You have 10 minutes to explain to your wife why you've been sleeping at my house before I do. Silence. Then, Brandon, listen, I can explain. I'm not interested in your explanation. I'm interested in making sure your wife knows exactly what kind of man she married. Oh, wait, you're divorced, aren't you? Wonder why? Brandon smiled coldly. Let me rephrase. You have 10 minutes to call your boss and HR before I send them security footage of you entering my house at 10 p.m. and leaving at 6 a.m. Multiple times. You can't do that. I'll sue you for what? Sharing factual video evidence of you entering my home? Try it. Brandon hung up. Melissa was sobbing now. You're destroying everything! No, Brandon said quietly. You destroyed everything. I'm just documenting the damage. Chapter 8. The Cavalry within 30 minutes, Brandon's brother Jake arrived. He was still in his police uniform from his night shift, his presence immediately shifting the dynamic in the room. Jake was younger than Brandon by 2 years, but had the weathered look of someone who'd seen too much human ugliness. Need help moving some things? Jake asked casually, but his hand rested on his duty belt. Melissa's eyes widened. You called the police on me? I called my brother, Brandon corrected. The fact that he's a cop is just coincidental. Though it does ensure you'll leave peacefully, doesn't it? She looked between the brothers, recognizing the trap. You planned all this. I gave you rope, Brandon said simply. You hanged yourself and dragged our daughter into it. Jake stepped forward. Ma'am, Brandon's asked me to supervise while you pack some essentials. We want to keep this civil. For Emma. Don't you dare lecture me about my daughter. Our daughter, Brandon corrected. Though after what you've done, exposing her to this, coaching her to hide it from me, I think that's going to change real quick. While Melissa packed, alternating between tears and threats, Brandon made more calls. Each one was calculated, strategic. The financial analyst in him approaching this like a hostile takeover, which in a way it was. First, her parents. Brandon had always had a good relationship with Tom and Linda. They'd been like second parents to him. Tom, it's Brandon. I need to tell you something about Melissa. No, Emma's fine, but Melissa's been having an affair. A man named Michael Garrett from her work. Yes, I have proof. She had him sleeping over while I was traveling, with Emma in the house. The silence on the other end stretched so long Brandon thought they'd disconnected. Then Tom's voice, cold as Arctic wind. We'll come get her. Tom, wait. No, Brandon. If what you're saying is true, Linda, get your keys. We're going to Brandon's. In the background, Brandon heard Linda asking what was wrong. Tom's response was muffled, but clearly angry. Then Linda got on the phone. Brandon, honey, are you sure? This doesn't sound like our Melissa. I'll send you the doorbell footage, Linda. I'm sorry. I know this is hard to hear. 20 minutes later, his phone rang. Tom again, his voice now shaking with rage. She's not welcome here. What she did to that little girl, that's not how we raised her. You need anything, you call us. Emma needs grandparents who won't confuse her with secrets and lies. She's got us. The support from Melissa's own parents seemed to break something in her when Brandon relayed the conversation. She sank onto the bed, clutching a half-folded sweater. My own parents? They're Emma's grandparents first, Brandon said. They understand what you've done to her, the position you put her in. Chapter 9. The Dominos Fall. As Melissa packed, Brandon continued his systematic dismantling of the life she'd built on lies. He called Mike's ex-wife Sarah. The number was easy to find. She'd kept her married name professionally, and she was a real estate agent with her contact info plastered across the internet. Sarah? This is Brandon Pierce. I apologize for the call, but I thought you should know your ex-husband has been having an affair with my wife. I have security footage if you need it for any ongoing legal matters. Sarah's laugh was bitter. Let me guess. He played the charming uncle to your kids? Made himself indispensable? That's his MO. Send me everything. My lawyer will be very interested. We're still fighting about alimony, and this proves the pattern of behavior I've been trying to establish. Pattern? Oh, honey, you're not the first family he's destroyed, just the latest. Does your wife know about the others? Brandon looked at Melissa, who was listening while pretending not to. I don't think she does. The last one was pregnant when her husband found out. Lost the baby from the stress. Mike dropped her the second things got complicated. He likes the chase, the secrecy. Once it's in the open, he runs. After Sarah, Brandon composed an email to HR at Clempton Marketing Group. He attached the doorbell footage and wrote a careful, factual complaint about the power dynamics between a creative director and an account manager. He mentioned the after-hours meetings at his private residence, the involvement of his minor child, the potential liability to the company. He copied the entire C-suite on the email. Then he posted on LinkedIn, nothing specific, just a note about the importance of ethical leadership and protecting families from workplace predators. He tagged Clempton's company page. Within an hour, his phone was buzzing with calls from Clempton's leadership. He let them go to voicemail. Chapter 10. The Unraveling. The locksmith arrived as Melissa was zipping her suitcase. The man worked efficiently, rekeying every lock while Jake supervised Melissa's departure. She'd called Mike repeatedly, but he wasn't answering. Her girlfriends weren't picking up either. Brandon wondered if word was already spreading. "Where am I supposed to go?" Melissa demanded. "That's not my concern anymore," Brandon replied. "Maybe Mike has room." "Oh, wait. Sarah says he's living in a studio apartment after the divorce. Guess you'll have to figure it out." "I need money. The credit cards are canceled as of..." Brandon checked his banking app. 20 minutes ago. You can access your half of the checking account. Should be about $3,000 after I moved my portion to a separate account. "You can't just..." "I can. I did. My lawyer says it's all perfectly legal as long as I don't take more than my share of marital assets." Brandon handed her a printed statement. "There's your balance. Use it wisely." Tom and Linda arrived as Melissa was loading her suitcase into her car. The confrontation was brutal. Tom, a Vietnam veteran who'd always prided himself on emotional control, was nearly in tears. "In front of Emma?" he kept saying. "You had that man in your house, in your bed, in front of our granddaughter?" Linda wouldn't even look at her daughter. "We'll be filing for grandparent rights," she told Brandon quietly. "Emma needs stability. We'll support whatever custody arrangement keeps her safe." Melissa tried to hug her mother goodbye. Linda stepped back. "Not now. Maybe not ever. I need to think about what kind of person you've become." As Melissa drove away, Jake put a hand on Brandon's shoulder. "You okay?" "No," Brandon admitted. "But I will be. Emma will be." "What's the plan now?" "Now? Now I go explain to my daughter why Mommy's going to be staying somewhere else for a while. Then I document everything for the lawyer. Then..." Brandon's phone buzzed. An email from Clempton's CEO. "Then I watch the rest of the Dominos Fall." Chapter 11. Damage Control. Brandon found Emma in her room, arranging her stuffed animals in a careful circle. She looked up when he entered, her green eyes, his eyes, full of worry. "Is Mommy okay?" She was crying. Brandon sat on her bed, choosing his words carefully. "Mommy's going to stay somewhere else for a little while, but you'll still see her." "Why? How did you explain betrayal to a 6-year-old? How did you tell her that the mother she idolized had broken their family?" Sometimes grown-ups make choices that hurt other people's feelings. Mommy made some choices that hurt Daddy's feelings. So we need some time apart to figure things out. Emma considered this. Like when I took Sophia's crayon without asking and she didn't want to play with me? Something like that. But with grown-ups, it's more complicated. Is it because of Uncle Mike? Brandon's heart clenched. Why do you ask that, Princess? Emma looked down at her stuffed animals. I heard you talking. You sounded mad about Uncle Mike sleeping in your bed. I told him only Daddy sleeps there, but Mommy said it was okay because you weren't home. The innocence of it, the casual way she revealed being coached to accept the unacceptable, made Brandon want to scream. Instead, he pulled her into a hug. Listen to me, Emma. You didn't do anything wrong. Nothing that happened is your fault. And from now on, no more secrets in this house, okay? If something feels wrong or makes you uncomfortable, you tell Daddy. Okay. She was quiet for a moment. Daddy? Is Uncle Mike why you and Mommy are mad at each other? Yes, partly. I don't think I like Uncle Mike anymore. That's okay. You don't have to. They spent the rest of the morning together. Brandon called in sick to work, the first time in 3 years. He made Emma breakfast, frozen pancakes, but she declared them better than Mike's, helped her with a puzzle, read her favorite book twice. Normal things, healing things. His phone buzzed constantly. Emails from Clempton's legal team, texts from mutual friends who'd seen his LinkedIn post. A voicemail from Mike that was just breathing and background noise. Brandon ignored them all. Today was about Emma. That afternoon, while Emma napped, Brandon dove into the logistics. He opened new bank accounts, changed passwords, redirected his paycheck deposit. He made a detailed inventory of assets, photographed every room in the house, backed up all financial records. His lawyer, Jim Garrett, no relation to Mike, thankfully, called with good news. Judge Morgan reviewed the emergency filing. Given the evidence of the child's exposure to the affair and the coaching to keep secrets, she's granting temporary full custody. Melissa gets supervised visitation pending a psychological evaluation. Supervised? The judge takes a dim view of parents who involve children in adult secrets. Your recording of Emma talking about Uncle Mike sleeping in Daddy's bed was particularly damning. Add in the grandparents' statements supporting you. Melissa's lawyer is going to have an uphill battle. Brandon felt a mix of relief and sadness. This wasn't how he'd wanted things to go, but Melissa had made her choices. Chapter 12. The Professional Fallout. By Wednesday morning, the Clempton situation had exploded. Brandon woke to an email from their CEO, Margaret Chen. Mr. Pierce, we've received your complaint and have launched an immediate investigation. Both Michael Garrett and Melissa Pierce have been suspended pending the outcome. We take allegations of inappropriate relationships and power dynamics very seriously. Our legal team will be in touch to gather additional information. We appreciate your discretion in this matter. Margaret Chen, CEO, Clempton Marketing Group. An hour later, Mike's LinkedIn profile showed him as seeking new opportunities. Melissa's still listed her as an account manager, but Brandon knew that wouldn't last long. Sarah, Mike's ex-wife, had been busy. She'd shared Brandon's doorbell footage with what seemed like half of Charlotte. The video was edited to protect Emma. No audio, faces blurred. But it clearly showed Mike entering the house late at night and Melissa greeting him in lingerie. Just so everyone knows what kind of creative director Clempton hired, Sarah's post read. And what kind of woman thinks it's okay to have an affair in front of her 6-year-old daughter? These two deserve each other. The post went viral in their professional community. Marketing was a small world in Charlotte, and everyone loved scandal. By noon, both Mike and Melissa were radioactive. Brandon's phone rang. Melissa. Are you happy now? She was crying again, or still. I'm fired. Mike's fired. No one will hire us. You've destroyed our lives. I didn't fire you. Your choices did that. It was a mistake. People make mistakes. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk. You made deliberate choices over and over. You brought him into our home. You let Emma get attached. You made her keep secrets from me. That's not a mistake, Melissa. That's a pattern of deception. I love you. No, you don't. If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this. If you loved Emma, you wouldn't have exposed her to this. I want to come home. We can work through this. Brandon laughed, but there was no humor in it. With what? Trust. That's gone. Respect. You killed that. Love. You replaced that with Mike. There's nothing left to work with. Brandon, please. He hung up. Chapter 13. The New Reality. The next weeks established a new routine. Emma struggled at first, asking for mommy at bedtime, confused why she could only see her at a supervised center with a social worker present. But children are adaptable, and Brandon made sure she felt secure. He took time off work. His boss, understanding the situation, approved a flexible schedule. Mornings were for Emma. breakfast, school drop-off, being present. Afternoons while she was in class were for lawyers, therapy appointments, and rebuilding. The supervised visits were hard. Melissa showed up to the first one dressed like she was going to court, makeup perfect despite her red eyes. Emma was excited to see her, but confused by the sterile environment of the visitation center. "Why can't we go to the park?" Emma asked. "This is just for now," Melissa said, shooting Brandon a venomous look. "Daddy's being careful." The supervisor made a note. Later, Brandon's lawyer would tell him that comment alone had extended the supervision period. Parents weren't supposed to undermine each other during visits. Mike had vanished. After the Clempton firing, he'd apparently left Charlotte entirely. Sarah heard through the grapevine that he'd moved to Austin, telling people he needed a fresh start. He'd blocked Melissa on everything, abandoned her the moment consequences appeared. "I told you," Sarah said during one of their conversations. "He loves the hunt, not the prize. The moment it got hard, he ran. That's what he does." Melissa learned this the hard way. Working retail at a department store, living in a studio apartment, watching her career and social life crumble, she'd lost everything for a man who'd already moved on to his next conquest. Chapter 14. The Custody Battle. The formal custody hearing was set for August. Brandon's lawyer was confident. The evidence was overwhelming, but Melissa hired an aggressive attorney who tried every trick. They accused Brandon of parental alienation. The security footage, invasion of privacy, the recording of Emma, coaching, the grandparents' support, elder manipulation. But facts were facts. The court-appointed child psychologist interviewed Emma over several sessions. Her report was damning. The minor child exhibits signs of confusion regarding appropriate boundaries and family dynamics. She has been placed in an untenable position of keeping secrets from her father, which has caused evident distress. The child expresses fear that revealing information might make mommy cry or get Uncle Mike in trouble. This represents a clear pattern of emotional manipulation, whether intentional or not. The child requires a stable, secret-free environment to re-establish healthy attachment patterns. The psychologist recommended primary custody with Brandon, with a gradual step-up plan for Melissa. Supervised visits for 3 months, then unsupervised day visits, eventually working up to overnights, but only after completing a parenting class and individual therapy. Melissa's lawyer tried to argue gender bias, but the judge shut it down quickly. "This has nothing to do with gender, counselor. This has to do with which parent exposed a 6-year-old to an extramarital affair and coached her to hide it. That parent happens to be your client." The final ruling. Brandon got primary physical custody with final decision-making authority. Melissa got every other weekend, 1 dinner per week, and alternating holidays, pending successful completion of requirements. Chapter 15. Unintended Consequences. As fall arrived, the full impact of that June night became clear. Melissa's career in marketing was over, at least in Charlotte. No firm would touch her after the Clempton scandal. She'd applied to dozens of positions, but background checks and Google searches killed every opportunity. She'd tried reaching out to Mike, despite everything. His Austin number was disconnected. His LinkedIn showed him at a new firm, his profile scrubbed of any Charlotte references. When she'd messaged him, he'd blocked her without responding. Her friend circle had evaporated. The other moms from Emma's school whispered when she attended events. Her college friends chose sides. Most chose Brandon's, especially after Sarah's social media campaign. Even her book club had quietly suggested she take a break from attending. But perhaps the cruelest blow came from an unexpected source. In October, Brandon received a Facebook message from a woman named Jennifer Walsh. "Hi, Brandon. You don't know me, but I think our situations are connected. My husband worked at Dixon Industries with Melissa about 5 years ago. I just saw the posts about her and Mike Garrett. The same thing happened to us, but we never had proof. She had an affair with my husband. They were project partners. It destroyed our marriage. I just wanted you to know you're not alone. and I'm sorry this happened to your daughter. At least you were smart enough to document it. Brandon stared at the message, pieces clicking into place. Melissa's sudden job change 5 years ago. Her insistence that her old workplace had been toxic. The way she deleted all her Dixon colleagues from social media. He forwarded the message to his lawyer. Character evidence, Jim called it. Pattern of behavior. When confronted during a deposition, Melissa broke down completely. Yes, there had been someone at Dixon. A mistake, she called it. Ancient history. Not relevant. Not relevant? Brandon's lawyer had pounced. You destroyed another family 5 years ago in exactly the same way. That speaks directly to character and fitness as a parent. The revelation made it into the final custody order. The judge cited a documented pattern of introducing minor children to inappropriate adult situations across multiple relationships. Chapter 16. The healing by December, life had found a new rhythm. Emma had adjusted to the schedule, though she still sometimes asked why Mommy couldn't live with them. Brandon had found an excellent therapist who specialized in helping children process family changes. You're doing everything right, Dr. Martinez told him. You're honest without being cruel. You're protecting her from adult details while validating her feelings. She's lucky to have you. Brandon didn't always feel like he was doing everything right. Some nights after Emma was asleep, he'd sit in his empty house and wonder how he'd missed the signs for so long. How many business trips had been cover for affairs? How many client dinners had been dates? But dwelling on the past wouldn't help Emma, so he focused on building their future. He redecorated Emma's room, letting her choose new colors and furniture. He signed her up for art classes she'd been begging to take. He learned to braid her hair from YouTube tutorials. Small things that said, we're okay, we're moving forward, we're still a family. His brother Jake became a constant presence, the uncle Emma actually deserved. Tom and Linda visited every Sunday, providing the grandparent stability Emma needed. Brandon's own parents, who lived in Florida, flew up monthly. The village that surrounded them was real, built on honesty instead of secrets. Chapter 17. The Long Game. In January, almost a year after that night in June, Melissa made one last attempt at reconciliation. She showed up at the house, a violation of the custody order, which specified all exchanges happen at the neutral location. Brandon didn't open the door. He called the police. I just want to talk, she screamed through the door. I made mistakes, but I love you. I love Emma. This isn't fair. Fair. After everything, she wanted to talk about fair. Jake arrived with his partner, both in uniform. They handled it professionally, but Melissa's arrest for violating a custody order made the local news. Another nail in the coffin of any potential custody modification. From jail, she called Brandon. He shouldn't have answered, but curiosity won. Are you happy now? Her voice was hoarse. Is this what you wanted? What I wanted was a faithful wife and a stable home for our daughter. You took that away. Everything else, that's just consequences. I've lost everything. So did I. The difference is, I didn't choose it. She was quiet for so long he thought she'd hung up. Then, does Emma ever ask about me? Every day. What do you tell her? The truth. That you're her mother and you love her, but you made choices that mean you can't live with us. That she'll see you when it's her weekend. That none of it is her fault. Does she hate me? Brandon could have lied, could have twisted the knife. But that wasn't who he wanted to be. No, she misses you. She's confused and sometimes angry, but she doesn't hate you. Kids don't hate their parents. They just learn to live with disappointment. The words hit harder than anger would have. Melissa's sob was audible through the phone. I'm sorry. I know, but sorry doesn't undo it. Chapter 18. New Beginnings. Spring arrived with changes. Brandon's company offered him a promotion senior director with a significant raise. The travel requirements were less, which meant more time with Emma. He accepted immediately. Emma thrived in her new routine. Her therapist reported significant progress. The secretive, anxious child from the previous summer was gone, replaced by a confident 7-year-old who felt secure in her world. "Daddy," she said one evening over dinner, "Sophia's mom asked if you wanted to have coffee sometime." Brandon nearly choked on his pasta. "Did she? She said you seemed nice and lonely. Are you lonely, Daddy?" Was he? Brandon considered it. The rage had faded to a dull ache. The betrayal still stung, but it no longer consumed him. Maybe lonely wasn't the right word. Maybe ready was. "Sometimes," he admitted. "But I have you, and that's what matters most. I think you should have coffee with her. She makes really good cookies for the bake sale." Brandon laughed, the first genuine laugh in months. "Cookies are important." He didn't call Sophia's mom right away, but he thought about it. That was progress. Meanwhile, Melissa's life had stagnated. Still in retail, still in her studio apartment, still attending court-mandated therapy, Mike had married someone in Austin. Sarah had gleefully shared the announcement. A woman with 2 kids from a previous marriage. Give it 2 years, Sarah predicted. He'll do the same thing to her. Chapter 19. The anniversary June 15th approached with a mix of dread and reflection. 1 year since the night that changed everything. Brandon had taken the day off, planning to spend it with Emma, creating new memories to overlay the old. But that morning, he received an unexpected email from Mike. "Brandon, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. I don't expect forgiveness or understanding. I just wanted you to know that I'm in therapy now, trying to understand why I do what I do, why I destroy families, why I run when things get real. I'm sorry for what I did to your family, to Emma. She's an innocent kid who got caught in adult stupidity. That's on me as much as Melissa. I'm not asking for anything. Just wanted you to know that some of us actually learn from our mistakes. Eventually." Mike. Brandon stared at the email for a long time. Then he deleted it. Mike's journey of self-discovery wasn't his concern. The man had helped destroy his family. An email of self-awareness didn't undo that. That evening, as he tucked Emma into bed, she surprised him with a question. "Daddy? Are you still mad at Mommy?" Brandon considered his answer carefully. "I'm not mad anymore, Princess. I'm sad about what happened, but not mad. I heard Mrs. Chen tell Mr. Chen that Mommy made bad choices because she was selfish." "Is that true?" Kids heard everything. Brandon made a mental note to talk to the neighbors about little ears. "Adults make choices for lots of reasons, Em. Sometimes they don't think about how those choices hurt other people. That's what happened with Mommy. Will you ever be friends again?" "I don't know. Maybe someday we can be friendly for you, but not friends like before." Emma seemed to accept this. "Okay, as long as you're not mad. Being mad makes your face scrunch up funny." Brandon laughed, scrunching his face exaggeratedly, making Emma giggle. These moments, pure, simple, honest, were healing him day by day. Chapter 20. Full circle. By the time summer ended, life had settled into a new normal. The custody arrangement was working. Melissa had completed her requirements and moved to unsupervised visits. She'd learned to keep her resentment hidden, at least in front of Emma. Brandon had coffee with Sophia's mom, Rachel, then dinner, then a movie. It was slow, careful, with full disclosure about his situation. Rachel was divorced too, her ex living in California. She understood the complexities of blending families, of protecting children while trying to move forward. "I'm not looking for a replacement mom for Emma," Brandon told her early on. "Good," Rachel replied. "I'm not looking for a replacement dad for Sophia, but maybe we can be something new." It was healthy, honest. Everything his marriage hadn't been in the end. The divorce was finalized in September. The asset division was straightforward. The house to Brandon since he kept Emma, retirement accounts split, Melissa buying out her half of the equity when she could. The emotional division was messier, but that wasn't something lawyers could quantify. Tom and Linda remained firmly in Brandon's camp. They'd seen their daughter at supervised visits, but the warmth was gone. Linda had told Melissa plainly, "You broke more than your marriage. You broke our trust. That doesn't come back easily." Chapter 21. Lessons Learned. One evening in October, Brandon was reviewing Emma's homework when she asked, "Daddy, what's trust? It's my vocabulary word." Brandon set down his pen. Of all the words. Trust is when you believe someone will do what they say. When you feel safe with them. Emma nodded, writing carefully. Like I trust you to pick me up from school? Exactly. Did mommy break trust? 7-year-olds. No filter, all insight. Yes, Brandon said simply. She did. Can you fix the broken trust? Like with glue? Not really. Once trust is broken, it's very hard to put back together. That's why it's important to be honest with people we love. Emma considered this. Is that why you and Miss Rachel always tell each other the truth, even when it's not fun stuff? Brandon smiled. Rachel had been honest about her anxiety medication. He'd been honest about his trust issues. They'd built something real on that foundation of truth. That's exactly why. I'm glad you learned about trust, Daddy. Some kids in my class, their parents yell at each other and tell lies. It's scary. Brandon pulled her close. You never have to be scared here, Em. This is an honest house. No secrets, remember? No secrets, she agreed. That's way better. Chapter 22. The Reckoning. In November, Melissa made a mistake that would cost her dearly. She'd started dating someone, a man from her therapy group. Against court orders and therapist recommendations, she introduced him to Emma during one of her weekends. Emma told Brandon immediately, as she'd been taught to do with anything that felt wrong. His name is Carl, and he stayed over at Mommy's apartment. I didn't like it. He's not mean, but it felt weird, like with Uncle Mike. Brandon called his lawyer immediately. The custody agreement was clear. No overnight guests during Emma's visits without court approval and a background check. The emergency hearing was brutal. Melissa tried to argue it was innocent, that Carl had slept on the couch, that Emma was overreacting. But Emma's therapist testified about the child's progress, how she'd learned to recognize and report uncomfortable situations. This is exactly the pattern we've been working to break, Dr. Martinez explained. Emma has learned to trust her instincts and speak up when situations mirror past trauma. The fact that she immediately recognized this as similar to the Uncle Mike situation is telling. The judge was furious. Miss Pierce, you were given specific requirements to regain trust and demonstrate good judgment. In less than 6 months of unsupervised visits, you violated the most basic rule: no overnight guests. You've learned nothing. Melissa lost unsupervised visits again. Back to the visitation center, back to supervised interactions, back to square one. But worse, Emma had lost faith in her mother's ability to change. I don't want to go to Mommy's apartment anymore, Emma told Brandon that night. She promised no more secrets, but Carl was like a secret. It's okay, baby. You did the right thing telling me. Why does Mommy keep making bad choices? Brandon wished he had an answer that a 7-year-old could understand. Hell, he wished he had an answer he could understand. Chapter 23. Moving Forward. As 2024 drew to a close, Brandon took stock of their life. The house that had once felt like a crime scene was now filled with new memories. Emma's laughter echoed through rooms that had seen too much deception. Truth had replaced lies. Stability had replaced chaos. Rachel had become a steady presence, though they were taking things slowly. She and Emma had bonded over art projects and baking. Sophia and Emma had become best friends, their weekend playdates filling the house with joy. I never expected this, Rachel told him one evening as they watched the girls play. After my divorce, I thought I was done with love, with trust, with all of it. What changed? I met someone who values honesty as much as I do, who chose to build something real instead of settling for comfortable lies. They were careful not to repeat past mistakes. No sleepovers when the kids were present. No rushing into commitments. No secrets. Just two people who'd been broken by betrayal, choosing to heal together. Melissa watched from the sidelines, her life a cautionary tale. Still in retail, still alone after Carl had moved on to someone else, still fighting for scraps of time with her daughter. She'd sent Brandon an email on Emma's birthday. I know you hate me. I know I destroyed everything. I just wanted to say thank you for being the parent Emma deserves. I see what you've built for her, and I'm grateful, even if I can't be part of it. Maybe someday I'll be the mother she deserves too. I'm trying. Brandon didn't respond. Some bridges, once burned, couldn't be rebuilt. But he saved the email. Maybe someday, when Emma was older and asking harder questions, it would help her understand that even people who make terrible choices can love their children. Chapter 24. The Truth About Uncle Mike. Just before Christmas, Sarah called with news. Mike had been arrested in Austin. Fraud charges. He'd been embezzling from his new company, using the money to maintain a lifestyle he couldn't afford. The house of cards had finally collapsed. Turns out destroying families wasn't his only talent, Sarah said. The investigator found he'd done the same thing at 2 previous companies. He's looking at serious jail time. Brandon felt nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication. Mike Garrett had turned out to be exactly what he'd seemed. A man who took what wasn't his without considering the consequences. The only difference was this time, the consequences had caught up. He didn't tell Melissa. Let her find out on her own or not. Mike had abandoned her the moment things got difficult. She'd lost everything for a man who'd never valued anything. But he did tell Emma in simple terms when she asked about Uncle Mike one day. He made bad choices, bigger than just the ones with our family. He's in trouble with the police now. Emma nodded solemnly. Like how lies get bigger and bigger until they explode? Exactly like that. I'm glad he's not around anymore. He made Mommy different, meaner. Out of the mouths of babes. Chapter 25. The new year, January 1st, 2025, dawned bright and cold. Brandon stood on his deck, coffee in hand, watching Emma and Sophia build a snowman in the backyard. Rachel stood beside him, her hand in his. Any resolutions? She asked. Same as last year. Keep Emma safe, happy, and honest. Everything else is bonus. That's a good resolution. They were planning a summer vacation, the 4 of them to Disney World. A new family configuration, built on truth instead of lies. It wouldn't always be easy, blending their lives, but it would be real. Melissa had texted that morning, asking for an extra hour with Emma next weekend. Brandon had agreed. The anger was gone now, replaced by pity. She'd had everything. A loving husband, a beautiful daughter, a stable home, and thrown it away for excitement that turned to ash the moment it was exposed to light. Daddy, come help, Emma called. Sophia thinks the snowman should have 3 eyes, but that's silly. Brandon laughed, setting down his coffee. Coming, princess. As he helped the girls with their snowman, he thought about the journey from that June night to this January morning. The pain had been unbearable, the betrayal absolute. But from those ashes, they'd built something stronger. Emma had learned that truth matters, that secrets hurt, that she could trust her instincts. She'd learned that Daddy would always protect her, always listen, always choose her well-being over adult complications. And Brandon? He'd learned that sometimes destruction is necessary for rebirth. That choosing the hard path of truth was always better than the easy path of willful blindness. That his daughter deserved a home built on honesty, even if achieving it meant tearing down everything he'd built before. The snowman ended up with 2 eyes, a carrot nose, and a smile made of chocolate chips from Rachel's cookie stash. It wasn't perfect. One side was bigger than the other, and the hat kept sliding off. But it was real, built with love and laughter instead of secrets and lies. Just like their new life. Epilogue. 5 years later. Emma Pierce, now 12, stood before her 7th grade class, delivering a presentation on the importance of truth in relationships. She was poised, confident, articulate, everything a father could hope for. "Some people think white lies are harmless," she said, clicking to her next slide. "But lies are like seeds. They grow into bigger lies, and eventually they destroy everything around them. I learned this lesson early, and it's shaped who I am today." In the audience, Brandon sat with Rachel, now his wife of 2 years. They'd married in a small ceremony with just family and close friends. No secrets, no lies, just 2 people who'd learned to love honestly. Melissa was there too, in the back row. She'd slowly, painfully, rebuilt some relationship with Emma. Never what it had been. Never fully trusted, but present. She worked as an office manager now, having given up on marketing. She lived quietly, alone, the excitement she'd chased with Mike having led to nothing but loss. After the presentation, Emma hugged her father. "Did I do okay?" "You were perfect, Princess." "Thanks for teaching me about truth, Dad, even when it was hard." Brandon's throat tightened. "Always, Em, always." As they walked out together, Brandon, Rachel, Emma, and Sophia, now calling him Dad too, they passed Melissa. She smiled tentatively at Emma, who paused. "Good job, sweetie," Melissa said quietly. "Thanks, Mom." It was formal, polite, distant. But it was honest. And in their family, honesty was everything. The June night that had destroyed Brandon's world had ultimately saved it. Not in the way he'd wanted or expected, but in the way Emma needed. She'd grown up in a home without secrets, surrounded by people who chose truth over comfort, integrity over excitement. Mike Garrett was serving 7 years for embezzlement. Sarah had remarried, a good man who'd adopted her children. The Pierce family had found its new configuration. Life had moved on, as life does. But the lessons remained. Trust, once broken, never fully heals. Secrets, even small ones, corrode from within. Children see everything and deserve honesty. And sometimes, the worst night of your life becomes the first night of something better, not perfect, but real. Brandon looked at his family, his honest, imperfect, beautiful family, and knew he'd make the same choices again. The pain had been worth it for this. Emma's confidence, Rachel's partnership, Sophia's trust, and a home built on truth. Some prices are worth paying. Some battles are worth fighting. And some nights, as dark as they seem, are really just dawn in disguise. The end.